Why I left Islam, my struggle. So that's the video that I will be reacting to in this video, and this is quite recent. This is February 18, 2020. So this is quite recent, very recent. So I just reacted to a previous video and I couldn't find real reason to be discussed on. Hopefully this video is better in the sense that there are reason behind, that strong reason behind he or she leaving Islam, and hopefully we can discuss on that. So without further ado, let's go and react to this video.
Why I left Islam. It's taken me a long time to get the courage to make this video. And I'll admit that I'm afraid there will be real consequences in my life after I publish this.
Apostate, a person who leaves a religion, in this case Islam, put themselves at terrible risk. In many parts of the world, it is extremely dangerous for an individual to leave Islam. Consequences for doing so can result in banishment, imprisonment, extreme violence, and even death. The violent execution is often carried out by those closest to the victim. They include, but are not limited to, beheading, being thrown from rooftops, or even stoning. This is not restricted to Muslim-majority countries either. Harassment, violence, and murder towards ex-Muslims even occur in Canada, Australia, USA, and Europe. The UK in particular has the highest concentration of acid attacks in the Western world, many of which are carried out against ex-Muslims. Here are a few examples of what ex-Muslims have to endure in Western countries.
This is Nisa Hussain, a father of 6. 2 hooded men brutally beat him to the ground. He was left with broken bones and hospitalized. He says he was attacked because he left the faith of Islam.
Hudud man. Okay, first of all, there's a lot of terrible things that happen, and the most terrible crime in this kind of case is that first the terrible crime of harming others that is not allowed, that you cannot make excuse for them. That's number one. Number two, for them to claim that it's based on Islamic teaching, that's even bigger crime. I'm not belittling the crime that they harm others. That's a terrible crime that they have to face Allah Almighty and answer for that. What give them the permission to do that? And second, they claim that it's from Islam, which become a big fitna. That's even, I do not know how will they answer that in front of in the judgment day. So I think that is a sad reality that I'm not sure how many Muslims think that they can act on behalf of Allah. It's illogical. Unfortunately, that happens a lot, and it scares me in the sense that, I mean, I do not know how to solve this when many Muslims act as if they can do things without consequences on themselves in the judgment day.
There was every adult male in my immediate family and a religious leader sitting in the center. It was my decision to leave the religion. And before I knew it, fists were connecting to my face. I was being hit all over.
Like your dad or your brother will do if they find out you're an atheist. Kill me, maybe.
However, I do not want these potential consequences deterring me from telling my personal story. Considering my past videos talking about sex clubs, polyamory, even an interview with a gigolo, you'd think I grew up in an open, progressive, or liberal environment. However, that is not the case. I was born into a traditional and conservative Malay Muslim family in Singapore.
Okay, so she is having a Malay background. That's interesting because I'm a Malay, but she is from Singapore, which is a neighboring country to Malaysia. So that is interesting to understand. Yeah.
I was raised to pray 5 times a day. I did it habitually to seek out a sense of family unity.
Because I was wondering why is because the picture of Muslim family that is shown from early on is a Malay video. So I was, why? Because normally people do not find that clip to use, but apparently she is a Malay.
Furthermore, I enjoyed the parental validation that it brought. I took for granted that I was a Muslim by birth and never truly questioned it. Even from the age of 8, it was expected of me to wear the hijab whenever I went outside. However, by the time I was 12, I found myself feeling increasingly disconnected from my family. I wasn't able to have any sort of philosophical discussions that did not eventually lead to Islam. This meant I could never truly open up to them about the fact that I didn't particularly believe in the religion. It never.
So that is the thought of this kind of thing. This is one of the things that when I react to the girl that left Islam, about the way we are raised, the way we are brought up, the way we are being made to understand Islam is very much you just listen, you just follow this without question, without discussion, etc., which is dangerous, which I totally disagree with that approach. That being said, thinking about my daughters right now, right, how to trigger, because I wish they will question and we can have this discussion, right? Because if I start the discussion and okay, in a certain way, because in our culture, we are brought up to respect the elders, etc., which is a good values, which should be there. I'm not arguing about that, but that combining with them, it's not a norm to question or to pose a philosophical question, etc., meaning that they tend to just agree and accept, which I hope that is not the norm for me personally. I'm talking personally because I would like them to question and we can have in-depth discussion, not in-depth as an adult, but at least they can have their mind to wonder and understand it, crucially understand it, why we arrive at this conclusion. Why? Because that is what will lead us towards a conclusive, strong belief, rather than just belief and then when you have question, don't ask, etc. That is not what it should be.
It never occurred to me while growing up that living Islam was an option. Even at 18, I wasn't aware that there was such a thing as an ex-Muslim. Was being secular more in tune with who I am? I wanted to know what else life had to offer. I explored this question at 19 by sneakily going out without my hijab, attending music festivals, and living almost as freely as I wanted, all while still keeping up appearances at home in front of my family. In my pursuit to find my own path, I learned more about Islam and how it did not coincide with my personal ideals. Ultimately, I came to the conclusion that my life would be severely restricted if I continued living as a practicing Muslim.
Okay, that's one thing. So basically, the starting point is her ideals and Islamic teaching that she understands does not coincide, which is a problem, right? So that's one thing. Hopefully we can discuss on that if we have time.
I was shocked to discover that I was not alone. There are millions of other ex-Muslims all over the world. The vast majority of them conceal their apostasy out of fear of persecution by the Islamic community. Ex-Muslims suffering verbal and physical abuse, being shunned by their immediate family, is commonplace. A 2010 Pew Research Center survey showed that Muslims in Egypt, Jordan, Pakistan, and Nigeria would favor a death penalty for those who leave the religion. I reached out to several ex-Muslim activists such as Yasmin Mohammed, Sarah Haider, Abdullah Samir, and Zara Kay. Furthermore, I joined the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain, as well as posted my questions on the r/ex-Muslim subreddit. Hardly any ex-Muslims replied to my inquiries. Most who did simply stated that they were still closeted about their apostasy. Very few were willing to go into depth about the subject. Furthermore, despite my best efforts, I've yet to find any recent statistics on ex-Muslims online. Thankfully, I was living in Singapore, where violence is not openly tolerated and where there are no apostasy laws in place. Still, my life would have been a lot easier had I chosen to remain as a closeted ex-Muslim. The only problem was I was tired of lying to myself and others. I fully expected that once I announced my apostasy, my family would throw me out. Thus, I saved up money for an entire year, so that I'd have a safety net to fall on should the worst occur. When I was ready, I used a PowerPoint presentation to explain to my entire family why I was leaving Islam. Some of them were brought to tears by my decision. The next few months were extremely difficult. While my family did not evict me, they did treat me like a stranger in my own home, which was in many ways worse. Meanwhile, my mother kept suggesting that I meet a religious figure who she believed could persuade me to rejoin Islam. I refused because I wanted something different out of life. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I was going to do now that I'd been shunned by my family. I made the decision to start traveling with friends, then on my own. I visited Japan, Indonesia, Thailand, Hong Kong, Macau, and Laos. While traveling, I discovered that I did not have to stay in Singapore, where I'd face constant disapproval from my family. I could build a new home for myself. So I decided to move to Bangkok, then Europe, and have kept traveling ever since. I do try to contact my family from time to time, but am either ignored, met with hostility, or pressured to return to Islam. I wish they would be willing to talk to me without it spiraling into how I should return to Islam. But any attempts to set such boundaries are always disregarded. My family almost never contact me anymore unless I reach out to them first, and even then, I'm usually ignored. They wouldn't even respond when I told them that I was going to get married. By contrast, they all instantly responded with a lot of outrage when I once shared a picture of me petting a dog, which is forbidden in Islam. I miss my family terribly, and it breaks my heart that we are so estranged. My parents want to remain devout Muslims, and I'm fine with that. Furthermore, I fully understand why my decision to leave Islam was a huge shock to them. However, their unwillingness to accept me as I am has created a huge division between us, which I fear might never be mended.
I love making videos, and I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon. However, considering my circumstances, I need to take a small break in order to prioritize my safety. I truly appreciate your continued support. It means a lot to me. If everything works out, I'll be back soon. Ciao.
Okay, that was interesting, in the sense that the only reason that I think, as it becomes apparent as the reason that is specifically mentioned about leaving Islam, is that her ideals and what Islam teach is not coincide, and hence they cannot move forward as a Muslim, right? I can understand that in the sense that if anyone faced with that, it's hard to imagine him continuing to be happy while being devoted as a Muslim, if we consider the religion is Muslim, Islam, right? And that is where I think, because Islam is built upon a set of belief about this real world, what it is, how will it will end, etc., and hence we become Muslim. It's not like there's no reason, just become Muslim and follow these strict rules, etc., right? Because if anyone perceive Islam as such or being brought as such, then it's very hard for them to be happy, because they will have a certain set of ideals which will never coincide with Islam, with the teaching, with what God says this should be the way you live your life. Because we have our own, what you call, nafs, or our desire, basically want to live outside of boundary, outside of restriction, etc. We will want to, we have the desire to live the life that how we want, whatever we want, etc. Yeah, so I think I have to talk about this in a separate video, in the sense that why someone should end up to become a Muslim, or why I end up to become a Muslim, yeah, in terms of the chronology of the set of belief which leads me, okay, as a conclusion I should be a Muslim, and hence I want to be a Muslim, right? Not because I was born because that's the big issue that I think majority of Malay is facing. Because even here, when I ask the Malay students that I have, it's terrifying, because many of them cannot clearly answer why they end up to be Muslim. It's just like, I'm born into it, just follow the flow, and that's it. So it's dangerous then, because it's not weird for anyone like that to either officially still a Muslim but live a life that you do not call as a Muslim, or like in this case they want to officially get out of it, right? So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that should be looked into, in the sense that how kids are being brought up. I talk about this a lot in the specific video about the girl that left Islam, because that girl, I think if you haven't watched that, please watch that. I think that's a good insight of how kids process things, and when we teach them religion, in such a way that it's not helpful for them to understand, it's just like it's a restriction and you have to follow the norm, etc. It's not helpful at all in the long run. It's not. Anyway, so that's the video. I think that this video is quite interesting in the sense that it's very personal. That's number one. There seems to be a reason, but it's more of lack of reason of understanding why she should be a Muslim. It's basically it. I think that's the fundamental thing. There's no strong reason for her to be a Muslim, and hence she left, rather than there's a strong belief why she should denounce Islam, if you know what I mean, right? So and hence I think that is the key point where many cannot really answer why I should be a Muslim. If you ask many Malay Muslim, sadly they cannot answer that, meaning their faith is very, very fragile and they can go out anytime given the certain circumstances. So that's my opinion and my reaction. What do you think? I was shocked to learn this is a Malay. I didn't expect it because it doesn't appear from the channel, etc. Interesting coincidence. And yeah, if I can find any other Muslim Malay that, or ex-Muslim, etc., that have any YouTube, it's interesting to see what goes inside in terms of them decide to do whatever they decide on. Okay, so I will end it here, inshallah. Do comment what is your opinion, and especially if you are Muslim, Malay Muslim, what do you think about this? What about you? Are you convinced that you should be a Muslim, and why, etc.? So I'm interested in that topic, and I'm interested to help in terms of solving these issues. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.